listening to The Voice, 17104.com. Welcome to Did You Know? Podcast, your host, Richard Utley, dedicated to the African American viewers. The program is aimed to celebrate African American culture and deal with the real and relevant topics that impact the everyday lives of the African American community through frank and insightful dialogue with local and national influencers. Every day, there's another horrible, discouraging news story, directly or indirectly impacting African Americans. But we need to look at the shining stars in the galaxy of Black America. It is time to tell our story.
They got them bats. Good evening, and welcome to another Did You Know? Well, Black history's over, but you know we can't let that defeat us. We got to make sure that we teach our young people and other people about Black history. So even though we only had a short month, I think it's very important that we keep Black history alive all the time. And especially those of you born in the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s. You're aware of the history, but a lot of people are not. And so I think it's very important that we need to let them know that there was a such person as Dr. King, Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, SNCC, Black Panthers. It's important for them to know about Brown versus the Board of Education, Emmett Till, the Tulsa Massacre, Little Rock Nine. And the reason we need to tell our young people that is because they risked their lives for us. People protested and marched to fight, to make sure that we'd have a seat at the table. And so I'm going to lead with that, a seat at the table. So we're going to have to create our own opportunities so that we can have a seat at the table. I'm a big believer that you don't go to the table with your hand out. You got to go to the table with something. And I think what we're going to start to do, and I've been telling the community this for a long time, we got to look out for ourselves. Because if we keep waiting on somebody to ride into our neighborhood and take care of us, we are going to be in trouble. You know, when you look at people like Governor of Florida, you know, he's now running this whole thing about almost like, let's take America, make it great again. But now he's talking about he wants to have a vision of the nation, and America should become basically conservative. So I think all of you know what that means. So I don't have to really tell you what that means because you know what it means. That means that we better start getting ourselves together. We better start protecting our communities. We better start developing economic entrepreneurship, and we have to go out and start supporting ourselves. I've said this before. We need to support those who support us. You don't have to be all Black folks. It could be everybody, but they got to support us. We support them. They got to support us. A couple other things I always bring up. I try to bring up all the time some things that we need to know. And I was reading something, you know, I thought I would bring it up because I thought it was very interesting. I was reading an article that said Greyhound passengers often left stranded. Well, you know, that is very true. When I was a person, Greyhound bus used to be the only transportation that I knew. So the reason I'm bringing it up is that a lot of you allow institutions to do a lot of things to us and we don't report it. We just assume that's the way it is. So if you know somebody out there, or you have some family member friends that got stranded with Greyhound bus, or Greyhound bus didn't do you right, then you need to turn them in. You can turn them into the Pennsylvania Bureau of Consumer Protection. It's a branch of the Attorney General's office. Or you can contact the Greyhound bus line. They have a customer care team. And it's www.greyhound.com help. Okay? Or they have a number 833-233-8507. And the reason I'm bringing it up, I think too often we just let people get away with stuff. And we need to stop that. We need to hold people accountable because they hold us accountable. And I think that's very important. So those are the only things I'm going to talk about today, is to give you some things to think about. And that is that we are responsible to tell our history. And we keep waiting on somebody to teach our history, then shame on us. You know, in my programs, I always try to bring people on that have visions, people that are doing a lot of things. And so tonight, I'm just very fortunate. I'm bringing a person on. Her name is Carla Johnson, and she's the founder of Blessed to Give. And we're going to talk to her. We're going to talk about some things that she's doing. And the first thing I want to do, I want her to introduce herself to you. And after she introduces herself to you, then we're going to talk about her journey. What made her do what she's doing, and what made her believe in what she was doing. So please tell the audience who you are, where you're from. And I'll say this very quickly. A lot of people assume that the only people to watch my podcast is Harrisburg, and that is not very true. I have people in Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. I have people all over the state of Pennsylvania, but I have people in other parts of the country too. And maybe what you're talking about, they may be interested in having it in their town. So Carla, tell us about you.
I am Carla Johnson. I am the owner, founder of the 501c3 Blessed to Give. A lot of us know us known as Camp Swag or Swag 4.0. I am originally from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I grew up in Susquehanna Township, and I started my nonprofit in 2015.
Okay, so you started that, so you're from Harrisburg. So what made you decide that you even wanted to create a nonprofit?
Well, I went to a program in New Jersey, Camden, New Jersey, to support another person who had a similar vision, not knowing that I had the vision, and I kind of fell in love with the ideal that they were given, helping youth. And I've always been, into helping the community. So when I saw that, I decided, let's try it in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and that's how I originally started. And then it just blossomed from there.
Well, you have this quote, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the services of others. What did you mean by that?
I think that goes with like a passion. So if you help others with a passion, then you don't want nothing in return, and you're just doing it to help others, help the community. So I think for me, the way I keep going is my motivation is because I like helping people. So if you generally help from the heart, it's not a job. That's why I say it's a passion. So the best way to help others is to fall in love, because do it from the heart, and it doesn't feel like it's a job. And whatever, you'll get blessed because you're blessed others, but you're not doing it for that reason. You're doing it to help others. But usually people who bless others get blessed back.
So you're saying you saw this program in New Jersey,
Correct,
and you fell in love with it, and you brought it back to Harrisburg. But your belief is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, your belief is that, if I'm blessed,
correct,
then I give to others.
Absolutely.
So do you believe in a reward system?
The reward system is helping people. So if you go into a situation and it's bad and they come out good, then that's your reward. You don't have to get nothing back. A lot of even with my program, 80% of it is funded by me. So I don't look out. If I do get donations or sponsorship, it goes straight to the nonprofit. I do it from a passion. I do it truly to help people.
Okay, let's get in. I'm going to go back to that program, but I'm going to get into the root of who you are. Who are you? And I think that's a very interesting question. Who are you? What told you inside that you would have this, and what created the belief that you have in what you believe in?
I think because it all goes back to, like, I grew up 2-parent home, middle class, upper class, whatever you want to call it. And I was awarded a lot of opportunities. And I feel that, and I still feel to this day, the more you open someone's eyes to something that they may be ignorant to, they may do better in life because they didn't know about it. If that makes sense.
No.
I'm sorry. So my passion is that bring, some people don't know, if you have a parent that doesn't know right from wrong, because just because you're a parent doesn't mean you know how to take care of a kid. And sometimes if you could show them a different way, then they can help their kid. And if you show a kid a different way, they may see something larger, then they may want more. So my if you want to say niche, or yes, I want to help all youth. Yes, I want to help everyone, but I really want to help the underserved population, at-risk youth.
So you're saying that you had a foundation, you had two parents, so you were afforded a lot of opportunities a lot of people didn't have.
Correct.
And so because of that, you decided that you were going to help others.
Correct.
You were going to reach down and pull up.
Absolutely.
Okay, my other point I'm asking you is, I understand you reach down to pull up, but in your heart,
right,
in your heart of hearts, what made you feel so comfortable that you wanted to take that journey? And the reason I'm asking you that question, there are some people out there, I'm willing to bet, that's just like you, that want to take that journey or thinking about taking that journey, and they want to look at you and say, you know what, I see myself as that.
I just think I don't know. It was in me. Like, once you start something and you see, like you said, the reward, it makes you want to keep going. So I didn't go into this thinking, I didn't go into this thinking it would be a 501c3. I went into this, I want to help youth, right? So that's in 2015. I partnered with certain people and we help youth. If you really dive into something, it opens your eyes to see that there's more to help than just the youth. So it developed over time, and me seeing that what I'm doing is helping makes you just want to keep going. You're not going to know from the beginning that this is going to be the outcome. It's a journey, it's you're in the trenches. And when you see, so if you see something and you like, oh, I just want to go help kids who play basketball. And then you see that a kid is struggling because they want to grow farm. You're like, well, I'm gonna get in agriculture because I want to help them too. So you didn't plan to start that way, but that's the way it took you because you saw the need in the community. You understand what I'm saying? And so then you may see, you might go out and someone may get shot, and a kid may get shot, and you see a parent crying. You like, oh well, that touches you. Well, now I want to help parents. So if you put yourself in a ball, I don't think you can. If you really have the passion for it, you have to go where like you say, where the Lord takes you. And on Monday, it may take me this way. On Tuesday, it may take me this way. But you only know it when you're in the fight, when you're in the journey.
So you knew spiritually that you was going to go on this journey, and you knew that your spirituality was going to help carry you forward.
Right. Because when I started out helping. I had a Susquehanna Township Middle School. I had an after-school program for at-risk youth. I think all youth are at-risk, so I don't really like seeing it. But I had it for youth for after-school program, and then I had events, and I had a Saturday program and another location for youth. And then, so that's what my goal was, because I thought that was all I needed to do. And then I sat back and said, well, 6 years later, I said, no, I gotta help parents. But I didn't start in 2015 wanting to help parents. So you never know where you're going to go. It's the journey. So now I have a parent program at Shafter Detention Center to help the parents. So, but if you would have asked me 2 years ago would I be wanting to help parents, it probably would have been like it wasn't really in my heart. So I help what I want to do. I don't help where I think also where it's needed. But if you do it from natural, from the heart, then it's easy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
It's not like, somebody say, well, if you go into business for water bottles, they're really selling right now, so sell water bottles so everybody, you know what I mean? But if you don't really want to sell water, you don't even like drinking water, then you're not really in it. So you got to do what's in your heart, I think. I
think that's a good point, and what you're saying is that you have to believe in what you're doing.
Correct.
And you believe that part of you is to go out and to help people.
Correct.
So can I say that you're in the people business?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go back to something else. You said something a few minutes ago about at-risk children.
Right.
And you said they're all at risk. Could you elaborate on what you mean by that?
Because I think sometimes that's like the same thing with trauma. Sometimes people put people in boxes. Oh, well, they're bad, so they're at risk. Everybody has an issue. No kid's perfect. Every kid needs help in some form, so we're all at risk. Everybody has trauma, some more, some less. But you can't put them in a box. You just say everybody has trauma. All kids are at risk because all kids have issues. So I don't like putting people in boxes. Now I know a lot of times they say the kids who are bad or troubled or whatever, they're the at-risk youth or underserved. There's a lot of kids who come from great parent homes or billionaires are at risk. You know what I mean? Like everyone has issues. So I hate saying at risk because it feels like I'm putting this kid in a bubble.
So what you're saying is, and I agree with you.
Right.
What you're saying is that all of us, including myself when I was young, I'm probably sure that I was probably put in some of those categories. What you're saying is that one of the things that you're really trying to fight is that we all have issues and we all have things, but you're trying to help because sometimes when you get put in a box,
Right.
it creates some positive and sometimes it creates some
Absolutely.
very negative things. And so you're saying, hey, we're all fair. I look at everybody the same. And I think that's very important. And audience, you know this. I'm a big believer in, that's why I have this program, because I believe we have to define ourselves. I believe we have to tell our own stories. If we keep waiting on somebody to tell our stories, and they're never going to get told. That's why I have these programs so we can look at people that look like us. One of the other things I want to ask you, okay, you talked about the at-risk youth, and I'm going to flip it around here real quickly. Now, we understand the youth, and then you turned around and you said, what? And what about the parents? Because I guess you have to play it two ways in terms of how you merge it.
Right. I think the parent part for me, so I have a 23 and a 24-year-old, and they're night and day. So I understand from a parent standpoint the struggles you go to. And I understand from a parent standpoint, you could do your best job and it still ain't, the kid can end up however. So in these times we live now, first of all, I can't even imagine having a child right now in this world we live in with social media and all the pressures that the youth go through now. And a lot of times parents are trying their hardest and they just don't know what to do. And parents need resources the same way the youth need resources. Also, if I personally would just make up a name, Little Johnny, if I'm helping Little Johnny every day and he's becoming better, but I'm sending him back home to an environment that's not helping them, then what am I really doing? So help the parent, then that can help the kid. That is the whole reason why now I'm trying to help more with the parents, because I've had talks with parents and I've had talks with superintendents and principals. And when the kid, little Johnny, gets in trouble in school, when the parents gets called in, they're coming to ask the school, what can I do? How can you help me? Because they tried all their solutions and it didn't work. And then and it's just society that we live in now. The parent is different. Our parents were different than the parents that are raising these kids now. Some of them are ignorant, don't know better. Some of them are having them young, and then their mom is young. So you got 16-year-old having a baby and the mom is 30, you know what I mean? So it's like the grandmom's 30. They don't really have a structure. So then they're raising kids by babies. And that's a whole nother issue.
It's another issue, but I just want to lean on it for a few minutes. And I understand what you're saying, because everything that you're saying is very true. And and I think it hurts all people of color in the community when we see so many of our young people that are wandering sometimes. You said there's no question children are having children. So what do you think we need to do as a society, And then what should we do as a community?
I think, let me start with the community.
Okay.
I'm gonna talk about Harrisburg community. I feel that we should come together. A lot of times in my experience, so let's say there's 6 youth programs,
Mm-hmm.
they don't work together. So, and 9 times out of 10, if the same kids that go to youth program A also go to youth program B, but they don't go at the same times, and then they got to fight which one. Both of them are having a Saturday program. Which one do we go to? Or youth program A touches Uptown, youth program B touches the Hill, but there's always those kids that are not getting touched. But they could be if we could all come together, and then we can help more kids. So if the goal is to help the kids, then why are all the youth programs not working together? Or is it the, I don't know, it's a crab in the, like everybody wants to be the biggest, best ever. So then is it really the goal to help the kids? So I feel as a community, we need to, now granted, if one youth program is not a good program, of course you're not going to want to work with them. But if everyone has the same goals and morals and they, they're doing right by people, then why are they not coming together? Like I love partnering, because I just had an event where I gave away turkeys and hams. So if I just gave them away, I might not only been able to give away 50, but when this person came, they may be giving me 50 and then 50 and 50. So now you have an abundance. So the goal was let's all come together. And the key to that event was all of them people have their own programs. So, but when we came together, we could give back more to the community. So that's what I think the problems with the community is. It's a lot of talking and it's not a lot of action, and it's not working together to help the youth.
Well, I think
that's a society too.
No, I think
so that's why I started with the community.
No, you said the community, and I agree with you, but I would have to say it's not just Harrisburg.
No. I said, but I'm gonna focus only on.
You're gonna focus on Harrisburg, but the point is that's everywhere.
Right.
That's not just. You said you wanted to focus on Harrisburg, but my point is Pittsburgh, Erie, Lancaster, York. We're all guilty of the same thing. So would you say this? One of the things that maybe we all need to learn to communicate better towards one another.
Absolutely. Because and I ended with a society, because I think it's not just kids; it's all areas. If they all want to help, but if they would come together, sometimes it doesn't mean you still can't do your own thing, But if you come together and do it, then how much major would it be?
So what you're saying is, and then you can tell me if I'm wrong. What you're saying is that all of you can have your own individual program.
Absolutely.
But it would be nice if we would communicate with one another, seeing where we're going. Because the whole point is we're all trying to get to the same top.
Absolutely.
And we have to stop being quote unquote crabs in the barrel. But that concept has always been there for us, especially as a race. Crap, that has always been there.
Right.
So you're saying to everybody out there, hey, let's start talking and let's communicate. And that is a start. Right. And if just a few do it, then we're further ahead than where we are. Okay, absolutely. And I can accept that. And the other thing that you said, and something else you brought up, and I want to elaborate on this with you, is that child, parent, they go back into the same environment that they came out of. That is one of my issues about, and I'm just criminal justice system. The same thing. Some of them go into the criminal justice system, and when they come out, they come back to the same environment that caused them to go there. Right. Also, not only they go back to that same environment because that's where they sent to, but that's where they feel comfortable, because, and I'm a big believer in this, everybody needs a second chance. Everybody needs a second chance. I'm a big believer, and if I've done whatever I've done my time, then we move on with that. I don't need you to carry that on me, that stigma on me for the rest of my life. Give me an opportunity to show the world and give me an opportunity to show my community. I might have been one way when I went in.
Right.
But I've changed. But at the same time, some of the environment is the same. Now, in saying all that, so give me the history of your organization.
How it started?
Sure. I mean, you already told me.
I did want to touch that one real quick.
Go ahead, touch. Sure.
With the youth, I'm a big, the pipeline, prison pipeline, I'm big on sometimes, and when it goes back to how can we help, I say this lightly, I'm not gonna say less cops, more therapists, but less cops, more therapists. Like in the schools, and if you do your research with Black communities and other communities, they always send them to jail. Johnny got bad, suspend him, we'll figure out what we're gonna do with him. Then when we figure out what we're gonna do with him, then we'll send them away. That whole time, Johnny missed school. So what can you do when you go away and then come back? I mean, there's no therapy, there's no teaching, there's just send them away. I feel like they're always, in the Black community, it's easier just to push them out to school, suspend them, than to really fix the problem. Because suspending them doesn't solve the problem. It just gets them out your hair for a couple of days, if that makes sense. No, and then you're sending them to an environment. So hypothetically, when you suspend Johnny, now he's home, 9 times out of 10, the parents are at work. What is he doing outside of school? So it's not really helping him. It's just getting him out the way. You know what I mean?
And I think you have a good
and that's point. Not what everybody.
No, but I think you have a good point. But it's something that needs to be discussed, because there was a program, and it was in Pittsburgh. Right. It's all education institutions where the problem was they looked and said, you suspend all these kids, and they're not learning anything because the kid's glad he's home. They might do something to get suspended. So why not put him in an alternative place where he's got to still go every day? He's got to still learn to read and write, because we have to prepare these people to be productive citizens down the road.
Correct.
And if we don't do that, then that's shame on us. And
then a lot of times, even not just youth, it could just be grown-ups who, they can't afford their lawyer, so they get sent away. And it's for minimal stuff that another person could have paid for the lawyer to get. But my point is once you send them away and then you let them out, they're coming back to the same environment. And that's a lot of times why you see the repeat offenders. Or like I've seen shows where like people had housing and then they get sent away, they lose their housing, and it's for a minimal crime that if they had the right representation, they wouldn't have been even put in jail, because a lot of times people have public defenders, and I'm not saying nothing against them, but now I seen a show where the mom did something minimal and she went to jail and then she lost her housing, which made her lose her kids, and then she gets out and she had to plead guilty because what else could she do? And she served her time. So when she comes home, what does she have? No kids and no house. It's just, I don't know.
Oh, I mean, that's a good thing you brought up. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you this now. I'm going to bring another topic up. This has nothing to do with it, but it does. Because you all know how I feel about cash bail. You all know I don't believe in cash bail. Because everybody don't have the cash. People have lost their jobs because they didn't have the bail and they sat in jail, and even though at the end they were found not guilty.
Exactly.
So I'm a believer of that. And I see the movement now where everybody's saying, oh, no. It doesn't say, and I get tired of people saying, oh, you're putting the criminal back out there. Not necessarily, because a lot of times they're not guilty. So I'm sitting in jail for 30 days, 60 days, 120 days before I go up for my trial and I'm found not guilty. I done lost my job, I done lost my car, I done lost my family, I done lost everything. So let's be fair about it. Cash bail is about those of you making a whole lot of money. And those of you who are sitting there because you can afford cash bail, think about your cousins, your brothers, because they all can. And that's the thing that I always wanted to look at is cash bails, because that's something that we need to look at down the road. Now, in saying all that, so you kind of gave me.
You want to know my history?
Pardon me?
You want to still know my history?
No.
We're over that.
Don't go and finish your history.
Okay.
But I got some more questions for you.
No, my history is basically like I started in 2015. It started out with, we were at Harrisburg School District. We had their gym in the summer. We did activities for the kids. Every activity that I do, I try to make it different, meaning something that they haven't already done. So I love sports, big football fanatic, but I feel like there's other stuff because like I have a son who I put into sports, it didn't work. He ends up in the arts. So I try to do stuff that, so we had like a candle making class. I would do like, you know how they have the sip and paint, like I would do that for the kids on a youth level. Try to take them places or do stuff with them that they wouldn't get outside of basketball, football, you know, the normal, the baseball. So that's always been my mission. I've had classes where and then everything I do, I try to make fun, you know. So like I did a makeup class called Make Yourself Beautiful. I picked so many girls. I had a professional photographer come in and I had them do their makeup and had another person do their hair. But the whole point was to teach them about self-love, you know. So it's like always a message with the activities that we do. After in 2019, I turned it into a 501c3. And then from there, it kind of stayed the same. Like I said, I had an at-risk youth program at Susquehanna Township Middle School. I had a Saturday program in Klein Village. I was on the NAACP board for the youth, so I went through them with my youth program. Currently, I'm at, like I said, Schaffner. I have a parent program there to try to help parents and then bring them together with their youth. I'm at Harrisburg Camp Curtin. I'm a mentor through Big Brothers and Big Sisters. So I mentor kids there. I go around to the schools and do, you know, talking moments, speaking engagements, whatever they ask of me. And then I still like I just had a poetry event last week teaching youth about Black culture. And then I had a poet come and actually do his poetry. And then the kids made their own poetry. And it was actually awesome. They did their poetry.
I want to go back to something that you said. You talked about exposure. Our kids need to be exposed because if they are not exposed, they have no way of knowing if they can or not. Absolutely. And so you said something, and I want you to go back and repeat it again. She said, everybody is not a sports fanatic. Right. There's so many other things that our kids need to be exposed to. Absolutely. And so you said everybody, and I tell people this all the time, everybody ain't going to the NFL and everybody ain't going to baseball and everybody ain't going to these places even though you believe you are. Correct. Sorry, but you're not going. So, but you bring so many other talents, but the issue I have, they need to be exposed to it. Absolutely. And like you said, some of them could be great artists. Some can be great things. But what you do is, tell me if I'm right, what you do is you try to let them know it's okay. Right. It's all right.
I want to say something real quick to plug. I also partner with Tim Hardaway Sr. So we talked about basketball. And I took kids to Ohio to his basketball camp. So they did get to see on a higher level what an NBA All-Star does and then work with the kids. But back to exposure, I just started. I'm getting into, I don't know everything about it, agriculture. I brought that up earlier. So I work with Harrisburg University's kids a lot, students a lot, because I feel it's better I find the student that majors in that field, and then they can, so with my poetry event, I had a student that majored in that field teach the class, because I feel like it's better for them to learn, for a 15-year-old to learn from a 19-year-old. I think it just works better. So for my agricultural event, I was thinking like people don't understand, well, kids, I mean, people in general, that you can be a farmer and make a living. So I had an event and it was for the Black community. And I took a bunch of kids and they had an in-person at Harrisburg University and they learned about agriculture. And then the part 2 was I loaded them in vans and I took them to a farm and they learned about all the animals. They were able to pet the animals. They were able to ride the horses. They were able to feed the animals. and the owner was a Black woman. So our goal, or my goal, our goal, because she helped me with it, of course, is to show our youth, our Black and brown, that you can do something different than play basketball. You could be a farmer and you can make a living off of it.
I think that's good. I want to commend you on that because I'm a big believer in exposure. I mean, if we don't know, that's why I have this program called. If you don't know, you don't have that vision. Because a lot of times we stay in the community that we grew up in,
Right.
and we don't go outside of that community. So I want to commend you on that. Now, let's talk about your overall vision.
My overall goal for this is to keep doing what I'm doing, just on a larger level. So like when I have cooking events where, I mean, like when I feed the population, the underserved, homeless, whatever you want to call it, population, my goal is always to make sure I can feed 100 people, you know. So, and I've always reached that and or above, but at the end of the day I want to feed 1,000 people. So I want to keep doing what I'm doing. I just want to help more people.
Okay, so your vision is that you want to help people, and at the same time you want to take what you have and give it to other people's knowledge so that they can kind of replicate or duplicate some of the things that you're doing to help out.
Correct. That's through partnership.
Through partnerships. Correct. And that is your way of reaching back. And
so for my agricultural, that was like 5 acres. I'm having another one in May, June at a different location. It's 50 acres. So see how I'm doing the same thing. I'm just trying to do it on a higher level. And this time they're going to be feeding baby goats with a milk bottle, you know? So it's like different, and it's going to be on a whole bigger level. So my point is that one, I want to have more kids come and then make it on a bigger level.
Before we keep going now, how do people find you? How do people know?
I'm around. No.
Who do they know? How they find you? Who they know where you work? You know, you have a website and some stuff, and so how do you want to tell people how to connect?
Most people connect with me on social media because that's the way the world works. So I'm Carla Hill on social media. My website is www.blessedtogivepa.com. The 2 being a number 2. So that you can connect with me. I do have a screen where contact, and you can put your information and it comes right to me. But between that, and I have a Blessed to Give Facebook page. There you have it. It's right there on the screen. There goes my phone number, my email, and if you fill out that form right there, it comes right to me. But most of the time it's through social media. I am Carla Hill though on social media. Johnson.
Okay, I think that's important. I guess the other thing that I'm going to ask you, I'm going to talk to you a few more minutes about this because you do have another program, and I want to touch on another program as well because I think the other program is just important, right? Because we'll talk about it. But before we go there, so really your whole idea when we talk about target population would be to you're hoping that people look at the community as we see it. And one of the things she's trying to say today to us, you tell me if I'm wrong, we all have some self-worth. Some of us better than others, but we should all look at each other together and try to help those out. Because when you said, you don't know why somebody acts the way they act.
Right, trauma care. Trauma informed care. That's one big thing. It's not what the kid does, is why does the kid do it? You got to find out the root of the problem.
And I don't think people look at that too often. Right. And I think that you're right. And I think that what you're saying today is what's important. And I think that that's what should probably be exposed, because we don't know why kids react the way they act. Some of them act out because they can't read and they don't want to have to read in the class.
Right.
Or they act out because they don't have something to wear, or they become hungry, or you've already said sometimes the kid is the kid's brother and sister's parent, even though the kid is a kid. And so I think it's very important, ladies and gentlemen, that we have people like Carla to have these programs, because we need those programs. And if we don't step up and do it ourselves, I don't know who we keep waiting on to do these programs.
Right.
One of the things I think, and you can tell me if I'm wrong or not, I believe that, as you said earlier, that all of us have to take a responsibility in the
Absolutely.
community. And that means that whether it's the school, whether it's the community organizations, whether it's the churches or whoever, we all have to band together, because you would admit it's a little different. Like you said, it's a little different when I grew up, because our community was more like a community.
Absolutely.
So, if you did something, Miss Sally down there saw you and she was going to call your house and tell whatever. Now you're scared to say anything to the kid, because the kid goes home and say, well, Mr. Such and Such said something to me. And then somebody runs up and says, you don't say anything to my kid.
Right.
So now you become, you don't say anything.
Right.
And the other thing is, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, we have to start taking responsibility in holding the parent as well as the child, as well as everybody else, accountable. Because one of the things that bothers me sometimes, I hear it and I see it, we sometimes say blame it on government. And government is not an all thing to everybody. And there are controls in government, but we have to do a better job of who we are and what we're about. So before I get to your next program, what else you want to say about this program?
I think we could actually combine the two because they work together.
Okay, well, we're going to go to the next program then. Your mental health.
Well, mental health.
Well, before you go into it, I'm going to say this. Ladies and gentlemen, especially in our community, we act like mental health don't exist. And we've done a terrible, terrible job of it. We've done a terrible job. I can trace it back that I had relatives that might have had mental health issues, and I allowed the community to say they just crazy, or we took it that way. Mental health is a major problem, and we got to deal with it, because I did some research. Every year, there's like 700,000 people commit suicide. And in 2019, African American population experienced about 7% of the suicide rate. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a lot. You may not think it's a lot, but it's a lot. Now, if you look at death and all the things that kill you, when you're going to die from, unfortunately, suicide is about the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. Did you hear me, ladies and gentlemen? I'm talking about we got a problem, and we need to deal with it. And I'm glad that you're willing to step up and deal with it, because that's one of the things that we in our especially in African American community, we don't like to talk about mental health. And we should talk about mental health, and we should address ourselves in mental health, because there's just so much that's important, and we don't think about it. We don't talk about suicide, or we don't talk about what's the reasons of suicide. Would you agree? I mean, whether it's depression, substance abuse, alcohol, or whatever.
Right. I agree. And I think, so my other business, like if you want to call it
Passion,
is yourmentalhealthhub.com. And the point of that was for people to find holistic stuff to help them and not always go towards medicine. I have sensory toys on there for the youth. I have candles, massage stuff, workout stuff. So the whole goal is for like self-help. And eventually I would somehow like to merge, because it's all one thing. Like you said, with suicide, especially with youth, it's like the social media is so hard, it's so hard for them. It's everything's like, trying to find it. everything's like pressure, you know, and they see other people do it, and then it's like I don't know, it's like, oh, they didn't make it, so I can't make it. You know, I'm not saying that we're softer, but I think like that suicide has grown because sometimes people don't use this mental health the proper way. Like they'll say, oh, I have trauma, and that's excuse for them to do bad things, you know, or hold on to stuff or not move forward. Sometimes we put this stigma on people, you know what I mean? So I think it needs to be more education out there about mental health. I think more people need to go and get help and not just say like, oh, I'm stressed. You know what I mean? And it doesn't really, and then I think sometimes when I'm like backwards when I'm talking, but sometimes when people say they're stressed, then they don't get help for it. You know, they say they're stressed and then they do more negative stuff to be more stressful because they put that stigma on them that they're stressed. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but what you said, maybe you ought to articulate that again because it made a lot of sense. You said,
Right.
now this is what you said.
What'd I say?
Oh, I'm stressed.
Right.
And then I go do some crazy thing to put more stress on me. But that connect is not there.
Yeah. It's just like with the youth, like you put them in a bubble. Oh, that's the kids that are in the bad class. So now the kid's like, I'm a bad kid because you didn't put the stigma on me that I'm bad. So now I'm gonna do bad things because you already said I'm bad. You know what I mean? And I think that's the big thing. Like, and it can go with mental health too. Like once you put yourself in a category, you respond to it the way that they say that category acts. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. So one of the things you always try to see what we can get out of these programs to my audience. So what you're saying is one of the things that we need to be is much more sensitive to each other and sensitive to the children, because you're right. Once you get that label,
right,
or once you get that stigma on you, it comes back to haunt you.
Right.
It comes back that you believe it. And I would say have my audience out there. I'm just saying to you, you all have experienced it. We might not want to admit it, but we've all have experienced it in some kind of way. Whether somebody says you're too fat, you're too skinny, you're too dark, you're too light, you're too this, you're dumb, you're stupid. And that's why I think it's important. And what she's saying here, it's important what you say to people, because Absolutely. It could have an effect on them.
Right. Right. And what was I going to say? And also I think, and that's why I try to have products that don't use medication, because sometimes we get on medication. So let's say they say, you're not normal, but if you take this pill, you'll be normal. So then we think, you know, they keep taking the pills and it gets worse and worse and worse. So that takes you to another level where you may need a stronger pill. Or then you get off the pills and you think, well, I'm good. I don't need these pills. And then you have the problems that you had before you got on the pills. So if we could figure out a way to solve whatever the issue is without resorting to medicine all the time. Because we both know that when we grew up, we didn't have all these ADHD, BHD. We didn't have all that. We just had, and I think it's another label that once you get labeled and you start putting them on these pills, and does it ever really, sometimes it helps, but does it really help them? Like, how can we fix them fix it, help solve a problem without the first item is labeling them and then putting them on a pill?
No, and I agree with that.
And how can you deal with stress without getting on the pill? There has to be other ways you can do it without, you know, resorting to medication or drugs or alcohol or whatever it is, because I don't really know a lot of people that resorted to that and they came out good at the end.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And that boils down to the youth, if that's what their parents are doing.
Right. There's no question that they see their parents do it. It's a occurrence all the way down. Let's just talk about mental health. We talked about mental health and importance, but one of the things that, and I looked at your information and stuff, and sometimes people don't understand why people commit suicide. And as I looked at it and I kind of thought about it, mm-hmm. You're right in terms of sometimes we don't know what people are going through.
Right.
We think that everybody's on a high.
Absolutely.
I'm a believer that life, this is my belief,
Right.
life has peaks and valleys.
Right.
You just hope and pray that you have more peaks than valleys.
Right.
But you're going to get them.
You're going to get
There's
them.
no purpose. And sometimes people don't understand why people do some of the things. And maybe what I'm going to ask you is that they should look at some of the family members, because sometimes people need help, but they don't want to tell you they need help. You know, we all like to believe we're strong.
Absolutely.
As you said, we think that we can handle it all. And sometimes there are those people that do have depression.
Right.
You know, there's people out there that has abuse, substance abuse, there's all kinds of abuse.
Absolutely.
I mean, and sometimes when you lose a loved one,
correct,
that can have an effect. And then also, and as I've gotten older, you think about chronic pain,
right,
and physical illness and stuff, and you ask yourself, is it worth it? I will say it is worth it. Sometimes I joke with a lot of my friends, and
is
I
what
remember,
worth it?
huh?
Is what worth it?
You know, sometimes you ask yourself, when we joke about it, you say, getting old ain't for sissies.
Okay.
And we always say, you know, getting old ain't for sissies. We laugh about it,
right,
because, you know, you go to bed and you feel good, and you wake up and you got a pain in your shoulder and your arm, and you say, all I did was go to sleep.
right.
you can't, you know, and plus sometimes we don't help ourselves, because as we get older, our body is not the same.
Absolutely.
But our mind sometimes
Right.
think it's still young. And
Right.
so we think we can still jump over
Right.
and run up the steps, and then we get up there and we don't know why we out of breath. So I think those things are very important. So tell me, so would you say when I say in our community, we need to look at the issues that we have as on a whole. We need to look at how we treat people, what we say to people, how we need to communicate better, and how we need to stop being so judgmental and putting people in boxes. And that's the thing that has always bothered me.
Right.
We put people in boxes, but yeah, we hate to be put in boxes.
Right.
You know, when I walk down the street, people have defined African Americans. People have defined cities as crime. You know, I watch TV and somebody will do a crime and they'll say, well, I didn't expect that in my neighborhood.
Right.
What do you mean you didn't expect it in your neighborhood? Crime is everywhere.
Right.
It just gets reported more broadly in other places than others. It is what it is. But, and then you go back and you say, you look overall and you go, oh, I didn't know that.
Right.
I've never seen people don't know much of anything. They always say they don't know.
Right.
And so that's why, and I keep saying this because I love to say that's why I have this program, because I tell my own story and I paint my own picture. But I think we have to paint. I think there has to be more of us painting our own pictures and telling our own stories, because we have such great stories out there. We have people like you that is doing it on your own.
Right.
You know, you're doing it on your own. We need that. But there's other people out there that want to take that same jump as you.
I say do it. Just jump.
She said jump.
Just jump.
So I know this
you might
program,
fall, get back up.
I know this program is going very fast here, because I told you how long the program is going to be. So it's going fast. So you got the next few minutes to say to my audience anything that you think is very important, or you just thought about that you want to articulate to my audience.
Well, I think if someone wants to do something, just do it. If you fail, you fail. You just try again, and you know better, do better. You know. Well, to what you were saying, if you know better, you do better. So when you say, how do we do a better community? I mean, that's not an answer you could give. And first of all, let's understand, I'm not a doctor or da-da-da, you know, I'm not a therapist. I'm just people say I'm in the trenches. I see the day-to-day, I see the everyday. So that's where I get a lot of my knowledge from actually doing it. And that goes back to just do it. You know, if you want to do something, just do it. Don't talk about it, just do it. You'll figure it out along the way. That's how a lot of us do stuff. We just figure it out. But I mean, we've all been that person at one time that was judgmental, slightly a bully. It could be back to when you was 5, you know, we've been it. And a lot of people are ignorant on stuff, so they don't know that. Some people know what they're doing. Some people just don't know what they're doing is wrong, because that's all they know, So I just think I can see growth in myself over time when, as I grow in life, as I do better in life, I learn more, and you do stuff differently, So I might have back in the day busted on somebody. Now I'm older, I'm growner. That's not funny, So I don't know how to solve how do we be a better community, because I don't know. But I know that for me, how I became a better person is just through growth and experiences.
Well, I think that's important that people want to know how they do better through growth and experiences. I think
and hanging around, I think a lot for me was changing they say who you hang with is who you are, but like I changed my environment. I changed the people I hung with. I try to stay more positive. I try to stay away from negativity. I try not to listen to no negativity. I'm just don't get stuck, just continue to try to grow. And if someone, and not just in a nonprofit, but if you want to start a business, I mean, there's really no reason why you can't. If you do the research, everything's on Google. You can research how to get money, how to get loans, how to start. If you want to start a cooking class, you can research recipes. It's just you got to put the work in, and you got to be consistent.
I think
that's how you get into it. And then, I mean, for me, you're going to be scared. I think I used to have a partner, and I can't think of the syndrome, the disease they call it. It's like when you're scared, when you don't think you deserve to be in that room.
Okay.
I can't think of what it's called. But anyway, I used to have a partner in this, and every time there was something that had to do with cameras or anything, I'd be like, no, I'm not good enough, you do it, or anytime I had to be in a room where I felt, oh, there's all doctors and stuff, and I don't have that, so I can't be in it, You got to jump over that fear, and you got to push yourself to do that. Like, I could never do this by myself 5 years ago, So if you're scared, being afraid is never going to get you to your goal. So you got to put yourself in uncomfortable positions so you could do better.
Okay,
I feel.
Okay, so you said some things here today. You said people need to do research.
Right.
You talked about people need to open up their level of associations of who they associate with, so that they can get much more exposure.
Right.
And
they say if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
That's correct. And I think that's been very fortunate. Even I've been very fortunate. I have a lot of friends that exposed me to a lot of things,
right.
Good, bad, and different.
Right.
But I would say to you, if you had to leave my audience with the quote, what quote would you use?
If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Okay, well that's fine.
I don't.
That's fine. I mean, but ladies and gentlemen, my whole purpose of bringing you,
I was just joking.
My whole point of bringing you on the program is so that people can see you have a passion. This is what you believe in, and so you're doing it. A lot of people do a lot of lip service, but they don't do anything. And like you said, hey, I'm no doctor, I'm not whatever, but I listen, I communicate. So some of the things that you hear from young people, or you hear from parents that got some issues, the whole object is to help them, guide them,
correct,
to get to a better whatever. Because they may not talk to me,
right,
but they will talk to you.
Right. So, and that's how a lot of youth are. But I also think another advice that you learn as you go. So don't let nobody, if you're trying to start a business, don't let nobody put you in a box. Because there was a time where all I did was help youth. And then I said, I should help adults too, women. And they were like, you're doing too much. Focus just on youth. And then at that moment, I was like, oh, maybe I am doing too much, And all I wanted to do at that moment was have a clothing drive for for adult women, But don't let nobody tell you what you should do. If you want to help women and help kids, help dogs, help cats, like whatever you feel in you to do, Don't let nobody tell you what your dreams should be, what your goals should be, and what your passion should be. Don't let nobody talk you out of your dream. Just do it. And if that's what you feel is in you, I was partners in a clothing store. My clothing store has nothing to do with my youth. That's at that moment. That's what I felt I wanted to do. And I did it, so that's a big advice for entrepreneurs. Do what you feel you should do. And you're not gonna be the overnight. I mean, you could be the overnight success, but understand that you probably are not, and it's okay. And you're gonna have bad days, you're gonna have good days. If it's not a nonprofit and you want to do business, you're not going to make $1 million the first year. You're probably not going to make no money the first year. Don't let that discourage you if that's your goal. Stay consistent and keep going. Anybody with consistency is eventually going to make what they're trying to do happen.
Well, thank you. I'm going to close with those words of wisdom from Scarlett Johnson. So thank you for coming on to the show.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me, sir.
Thank you for joining the Richard Utley Show on The Voice 17104.
How'd I do?
We will be here on The Voice 17104 every first and third Tuesday from 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Once again, thanks for viewing. Remember to visit us on Facebook at Richard Utley, and we welcome your questions and
what SWAG stands for? I didn't even say it. Soldiers walking according to God.